Normally I talk about comics, but tonight I'm going to talk about religion, which is not at all usual for me. But before I do, I just want to honour this extraordinary building as a place of worship and the many people who do use it for worship, and also those who worshipped in the old cathedral and in all the other churches and places of worship destroyed in the quake. Okay. So, I'm 8 or 9 years old, maybe 10, standing in the bush behind the water filtration plant on Woodlands Road, willing the fairies to show themselves. Come to me, I'm thinking as hard as I can. Show yourselves. I believe in you. I believe. Except that I don't. I mean, I really wanted to believe in fairies, magic, UFOs, maybe even God, but I couldn't. Deep down, I knew it was all stories, make-believe, fantasies. The fairies in this photo were, after all, made of paper, cut out of a picture book by two precocious girls. So instead, I embraced fantasy, novels, daydreams, Dungeons and Dragons. If a magical, spiritual, and meaningful world could only be found in stories, at least I could visit it there. And so I grew up, built a career, writing stories, many of them fantasies, married, made a family. And then last January, after years of somewhat reluctant atheism, I quietly set up a blog, The Year of Belief. I figured it was time I gave belief a serious go, with a totally open mind. After all, what if I was wrong? What if my non-belief was just another kind of faith? What if it was all real? I invited people to answer 6 questions anonymously and honestly. What are your spiritual beliefs? How sure are you that those beliefs are true? How did you come to have those beliefs? What do you wish you could believe but don't? What do you think it means to believe in something? And lastly, does this stuff matter to you? Do you think about it much? I received answers from all kinds of people. Christians, atheists, spiritualists, occultists, agnostics, Baha'i, a pagan priest, an astral traveller, and even a paranormal investigator. To maintain their anonymity, I asked people to send a picture not of themselves, but of a window they sometimes look through. I wanted to try seeing the world through their window, their filters, their perspectives and belief. People told me amazing stories, sometimes extremely personal, about their parents' divorce, battles with alcohol and drugs, the disapproval of their families, life-changing epiphanies, and secret yearnings. If I could force myself to believe in a divine purpose, one non-believer wrote, I'd do it in a heartbeat. And in contrast, another wrote, I wish I could not believe. Some saw religion as a choice, others as a range of metaphors for something we're unable to ever fully understand. It's important to always carry our metaphors lightly, one wrote, and to recognize that we need many. One of the most dangerous ways we can treat religion is to stick with one metaphor and try to force everything in the universe to line up nicely within it. I soon found the border between religion and unbelief was much more complicated than I thought. Metaphors would mix. I was not brought up to have religious beliefs, one wrote, thank God. Another told the story of a friend, an atheist, who was attending Alcoholics Anonymous meetings. He couldn't face the idea of giving himself over to a higher power, but someone pointed out a loophole. God, they said, could stand for group of drunks. One particularly moving response said, as a queer Christian, I find myself caught in the crossfire of 2 apparently mutually exclusive identities. I have tried hard to stop believing, but have not succeeded. I now simply accept it as part of who I am, and when required to classify myself, I use the phrase reluctant Christian of sorts. Above all, I learned that for many people, religious and atheist alike, the real issue isn't belief at all, it's practice. How you live, what you do. As one said, spirituality isn't a belief, It's a practice. It's how you live your life. I started going to church because I figured, well, if it's practice, I'd better give it a go. Sometimes I'd go to the local Anglican church, sometimes I'd go to a progressive Christian cathedral, and sometimes I'd go to the Universalist Unitarian Church in Auckland, where services were actively inclusive of all beliefs and inclinations, including multiple sexualities, which is why the Universalist Church in Auckland hit the headlines in the middle of the year as they hosted one of New Zealand's first same-sex weddings after the local Anglican cathedral had to pull out at the last minute. And I tried other metaphors too. I found a local Druid group online and asked if I could come along. Now, I figured I knew all about Druids. I'd read Asterix 1,000 times when I was a kid, and I'd played Druids in Dungeons and Dragons. What I discovered is that modern Druids are a little less predictable. There were no white robes, no golden sickles, and no magic spells. Instead, there were academics, psychotherapists, former Baptist deacons, and even a professional scientist. Their focus was on a deep spiritual respect for the natural world and for the stories told by our ancestors. Two moments stand out for me on this journey, two epiphanies, if you like, a culmination of all this reading and listening and practice. One of them came when I was out walking the dog. I was suddenly, abruptly, with almost physical force, struck by the sheer breathtaking wonder of the physical world around me. The sea, the wind, the golden light, all of it felt utterly real, amazing, and I felt the strong sense of being part of a single living communion with all of that. The last was one night sitting silently with half a dozen people at a Zen meditation group in an Anglican church in Grey Lynn. I suddenly found myself imagining none of us were there. The church was empty. There was no one sitting there, not even me. Nothing. It was the most beautiful thing I've ever felt, the quiet room, the empty church. Thank you.